Queer roles should only be played by queer actors.
I don't think that straight actors can call themselves allies if they do that.
I think inclusivity is such an important thing in our industry.
Now I'm presuming and assuming.
Because when I'm submitting, I don't know what the story is.
Networking is just as, if not more important than talent. 3, 2, 1.
That's a good point. The reason why I went here was because I'm a strong believer in it's who you know and not what you know. I feel like there are a lot of talented people everywhere, and some people are lucky enough to, or fortunate enough to meet certain people that get them to the stage that they want to get at. So, yeah, that's why I came here.
I agree with you because luck is when effort meets opportunity. So if you don't put yourself out there and have those opportunities in terms of networking,
No, for sure.
no one's gonna hear of you. And that's a big reason why I'm from Lebanon, but I'm coming here because I know there's way more opportunities for me here. So yeah, it's as important as talent.
I went agree because I think networking is extremely important, but I didn't go strongly agree because I think you have to follow it up with talent and skill, and I don't think talent and skill without networking means anything. I think you need everything as a whole to be able to make it.
I'd like to think I'm in the middle, but I think I'm going to move more over.
Join me!
I mean, I would really like to believe that the work speaks for itself more often than not, and I think in a lot of cases it does, but it is a lot of the time about who you know. It's about being seen. I mean, there's no point being good unless you're seen, and there's no point being seen unless you're good.
Yeah, I would disagree because I would like the idea to think that our talent and our skill is what actually gets us into the door, but I'm going to come more to neutral after listening to these poignant responses. Unfortunately, there's a lot of nepotism in this world, and in our industry, yeah, a lot of the people that have made it, they had someone in their corner who was willing to usher them through. And then, of course, fortunately for them, they had some talent as well. But I would stay neutral there because I think we need both, especially in our industry. In some industries, you know, your talent can get you all the way through, especially for like sports and stuff like that, and that entertainment. But when it comes to acting, you can be the most talented person in the room. Yeah. But if that director, you remind them of someone they don't like, you know, you might not get that role.
Acting classes are essential for actors' success. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, we went way too early.
You moved very fast.
Yeah. Mind you, I'm also an acting teacher.
Fair enough.
Plug.
Yeah. I think absolutely. I think the craft of acting is such a skill, and you can rely on instinct to a degree, but I think an actor's success never relies on their talent, it relies on their skill, and whether they can convert their talent into a skill set that is reliable. And I think you only get that from training and practice and doing it again and again and again.
Yeah.
What if your training is, you're one of those actors that never took a class, booked your first audition, and you've been working for your...
Well, then I would say that like that's a natural instinct and a natural talent. But I would argue that the greatness that could be achieved would be so much more if they could hone that talent.
Because there's the child
I was gonna say that.
stars
Child actors.
that who have probably never effectively taken an acting class.
Sure.
And just got put in there, and I mean, one that stands out for me who I think is quite great is LaBeouf, right? And he's been a childhood actor, and he's been able to tap into his skill. But no, by all means,
I would argue that all of these stars that never took an acting class have on-set coaches. Because I've been that on-set coach for child stars.
No?
Yeah.
No, okay, no.
Not all.
That's fair. That's fair.
And I think for me, at least, it was so crucial because I learned the technical aspects, and I also learned how to safely hone my skills. I learned how to deal with my emotions. It's a very confronting thing, I think, studying acting, and I think it's so rewarding because you can create something beautiful and sad and it doesn't have to affect you. And I think that's the beauty about art, is that you make something real. And that's what I love about it.
I feel it's like a muscle, like you have to practice it, and the more you do, it gets better. Just like anything. But it is also a combination of talent and skill together. So the talent has to be there, like that instinct gets you a long, long way. But there are certain technical aspects of the craft while being on set that you will never just learn. Except if you go to classes, you put yourself in that practice. So if you mess up from something, I don't know, if you don't have it together and you mess up from a small mistake, like you're losing time and money and it's your responsibility.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it is a combination of talent and skill. But classes always help. The exposure to classes always helps because it exposes you to a community of other actors who are doing the same thing. The biggest thing that classes taught me was how to be vulnerable, how to be vulnerable as a person, and that's something that I struggled with initially.
Yeah, I couldn't go strongly agree because there are so many bad classes out there.
No,
You have to
with
know.
bad teachers. Like there's a lot of teachers who didn't make it, who are now directing, and there's a lot of actors or people who wanted to become actors, went to class, and it killed their dream because they were so beaten down and
Discouraged,
broken because that's the way to become an actor. And so I agree, but it's a fine line because some people have got so technically trained that they're now so stiff on set that they don't actually have that fluidity of intuition that we all naturally have.
I'd like to request no neutral on this one, if possible. If a role is originally written for a particular ethnicity, auditions should be strictly limited to those who genuinely represent that ethnicity.
I'm gonna join you guys over here.
I'm the only white guy here, so I'll hold off for a little while.
Sure. I strongly agree, just because there's a huge track record of Hollywood hiring people who aren't reflective of that ethnicity group to portray that ethnicity group. However, that pendulum is swinging very far to the other side, almost too far. I think there's a delicate balance, but if we are going to portray a particular ethnic group and their culture, it seems like very backwards to go to a different ethnic group and ask them to portray them and represent them. Now, if we're talking in the context of fairy tale, something that has been fabricated and there's no real truth to it, then I don't think it matters whose race or who's playing what, because it's a fictional character. But if we're taking like Nelson Mandela and then we're gonna hire Jack Black, and I think that's, I think we need to start having some conversations about what are we doing and why. And now, because of that, the pendulum is swinging so far that now we're almost racist for the other side of it. Because now it's like, now we're choosing an ethnicity, and now we can only have this ethnicity come in, which I feel is the flip side of the coin, because these characters don't necessarily need to be that ethnicity because the role isn't asking for them to be that way, unless of course we are in a particular culture, right? And so now it's gone so far that the acting is getting misplaced. So for example, if there's a blind character, I've just learned in the industry through another actor that they're looking for only blind people. And which is great to give them opportunity, but how many blind people are in a visual medium?
Yeah.
And I think we need to take a real hard look and just remember that we are acting. And like, if the character has a limp, are we only going to look for people with limps? And nobody else can play the role with a limp?
I think that's a different point than this question, though.
Right, but absolutely, and that's what I mean by just the pendulum is just being swung so far, because it started here where certain ethnicities were playing other ethnicities, and now that we're trying to rectify that, it's now going so far that it's not even about ethnicity anymore. It's actually going into like sometimes disabilities or different ailments that people have, and I mean, part of acting is that we're acting. And so as long as we're, I guess, staying true to the work and to the story, then hire who's right for the story.
Coming from the Middle East, if there's a story where the character has to speak a certain, like Arabic, to hire someone from a different ethnicity and like give them those lines to memorize, like, I'm not agreeing with that, because already we don't have opportunities or representation on screen. So yes, if it serves the story, this ethnicity, like, yes, the actor has to be from that specific country, because authenticity. The amount of times that I've watched TV and they're speaking Arabic, and I'm like, I don't even understand the language that they're speaking, because that's not Arabic. You hired a completely different ethnicity, someone who looks maybe the same color, and like, it's kind of offensive. Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, it's strongly aligned to the type of film, the type of story that you're telling. If the story is strongly portraying a certain ethnic group, then obviously hire people from that ethnic group. But if the story is, say, I don't know if this is what the question is asking, but if the story is a Marvel film and the superhero is supposed to be white, I feel like any ethnicity should be able to audition for that film.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important also for younger generations to see that there is inclusivity in the industry, because I think maybe back in the day it could have felt very isolating for a young child who's like, I want to be an actor, but they only saw white presenting characters played on screen. And also to what you were saying with language, because I'm German, and when I watch television and there's a German character portrayed, oftentimes they're not German actors as well. And it's what they're saying is not German. It's a hybrid.
I strongly agree. I think if a character is written for a certain ethnicity, then by all means it should be cast as that ethnicity, because it's vital to story. It's written for a reason.
Actors should always trust the director's vision, regardless of whether it challenges their view of the character. 3, 2, 1.
I think that we should, in most cases, yes, trust the director. However, this is a collaborative process. The director has a role to play, and so do the actors, and so does everybody actually on the set. And if we can't have a collaborative playing field where I can present my choices that I think are in line with the character and the story, then I am then just a puppet on strings, and then, you know, what is the point? Why am I asking for more money? Why am I asking to play these roles if someone else is just going to tell me how I'm supposed to do it? You know, I would like to be able to present my color palette, and then the director can come in and start to help. We can smear it together. I
think it's probably a discussion you have with your director or the team that you're working behind, because I think as an actor, we don't necessarily know the final cut of what it's going to look like. And if there's a specific reason that a director wants you to do a certain thing, we don't know the reason for that, and that could be very crucial for the story. But I agree with that. I think every actor has a different flavor and essence and craziness and creativity that they can bring to a role. So I think it's about collaboration between both. So neutral.
Yeah.
It's the I want to work again line.
No.
I quickly went back. I was just like, I'm not making that
I stayed here because I felt like it's a collaboration, as you were saying. That's why it's like equal, because I feel like as actors, we're the ones who spend the most time thinking of those characters and why did we make that choice, and just like ruminating for hours on like, what's my life been like? So that's why I deserve the same opportunity to speak up my mind as the director has. That's why I felt like neutral would express that.
This has happened with me on numerous occasions where like I've been working on something and I get so attached to the character that I want to tell the story in my way or a different way as compared to what the director wants to tell. But at the end of the day, the director or the writer wrote the thing. They know what they're producing. They know what their end goal is, and you just got to believe in that.
I do agree in that you should always respect the director.
No, for sure.
I always hope for a conversation that goes both ways, where hopefully things are explained if you don't quite understand or on the same page. Yeah. But I do think that sometimes actors need to stand up for their choices, especially if they feel like it's right for their character. I've navigated that twice on set, where I've either stuck to my guns or given the director a take of what they want at the request that I get one of what I want. And both times, my take was what made the final cut.
Actors should always be friendly and sociable to the other actors and crew on set.
You disagree? I keep forgetting.
Oh, I'm just gonna be
Am I the asshole? It's just the word always that I don't agree with. I don't think you should always have to be social and friendly. I've played roles that have been like incredibly intense with like an altered physical state, an altered vocal state, an altered like state of consciousness, where I had to be incredibly focused in between takes. And like my warm-up was like insane body work. And I didn't want to go and socialize or go sit in the green room or like buddy with the crew because I had a job to do and we were shooting on film. So we only had a couple of takes of each scene. And I was like, I have to protect my energy and protect the performance. And then when we wrap, you can have fun and be friends.
Yeah.
But I don't think on set you should always be social and friendly. We're there to work. You should always be kind.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're there to socialize if you have to protect your instrument and protect your performance.
I agree. It depends on the role. So if it's...
I don't want to look stupid.
If you have the opportunity to just chill and be able to speak, to be social in between takes, totally do that. If not, I'd go there. You know, you have to be focused and remain in your bubble in a way, and it's okay.
No, I agree as well. I think it completely depends on the role you're doing. Like if it's a very, very heartbreaking scene and you know that you need time to prepare, if that's the kind of actor you are, it can be very hard when you're socializing with crew and other actors because then you're not doing justice to yourself or to the film. So that's why I'm a neutral, because I think it really depends on the production and the project.
True.
Yeah, I agree. I was on neutral, and then it's the always that kind of brought me over to slightly disagree, because I agree. We need to protect our energy. We're there to do a job. We're necessarily there to make friends however we can, and we should be open to that. But at the same time, especially here in Canada, there is this sort of people-pleasing thing that kind of happens where people also, not only do they feel privileged to be on set, it's like now that I'm on set, now I have to make sure that like I don't step on any toes and everybody's cool, and then that at the same time could be at jeopardy of my own work. So I don't think we always need to be like happy, hey, hi, I need to know everybody's name per se, but I will be kind and do my best. But when it comes to like doing my work, I think there needs to be a little bit more respect on set for the actors' like process. Because I feel like sometimes the crew is, you know, they get really excited. They see somebody that they know, and it's like it's really difficult at times to want to engage, but then remain focused on the craft. And then so I've actually like taught myself or told myself that if I'm on the first day and I'm going to be on the whole shoot, I just want to let everybody know I'm actually a good person. I like you, but I might not talk to you for 2 weeks until after. So I feel better about myself, because I don't like dismissing people, but I also, you know, want to do the work justice.
Yeah.
I think I initially went there just because I'm usually sociable and friendly on set, so I kind of like misunderstood that and mixed that up. But yeah, after hearing what you had to say and what all of you had to say, like understanding that perspective as well, we don't want to put our work in jeopardy.
Actors should receive equal pay based on the role, regardless of how established they are or their past experience.
No. I strongly disagree with that statement, just because, you know, if you're a well-established actor, you deserve a larger reward, I guess. I don't know how to put it any differently. At the end of the day, filmmakers are trying to make a product, right? And you're selling a product by putting certain names on the table. And if those names are more experienced, more recognized, I feel like they deserve a higher pay. Mm-hmm.
And also, actors don't become, it's not an overnight success.
No.
So we've been putting in the work for years and years and years until we get that pay. Mm-hmm. So I feel it just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with everything that you guys are saying as well. I think an exception for me would be if you are embodying someone that has already lived, and if maybe they're a musician and they're worldwide known, and the film would bring in billions and billions in revenue. But I do agree that an A-lister will bring in seats to the theaters.
Yeah, I chose strongly disagree to that statement because we are contractors. And we all determine our own value in life and in this business. And our value in terms of what we can present in terms of talent and skill is reflective of our pay. And that's something that we build upon after each role that we do. That's kind of the point, you know, as you enter in as an actor, starting at background, some of us, and then getting an actor role, and then a principal, and then a supporting, and then a lead. I would really like that to reflect as I'm, so to speak, climbing this ladder, that also I'm being compensated for that. And then, I agree, if my name is bringing in the seats, then for sure.
I will also add that sometimes having a name attached to a project means that project gets made.
Yeah.
And like, without that name, there
No
would
project.
be no employment for the 500 people that work on that film. So that person deserves that cut of the pie.
Critics, get to me. 3, 2, 1.
I'm here because there have been moments in my career where it has gotten to me, but I've never let that show up in my work. And if you do let it show up in your work, I think it's a tough thing because no one wants to get critiqued because this is our body, this is our voice that's very vulnerable to us. And I think you have to separate yourself from your craft when you are on set so that even when you are getting critique, you are still able to perform. And also, doesn't critique make you just want to just prove them wrong?
No, 100%.
Like, I can do this. I deserve to be here. So that's why I like my neutral line.
Yeah, I'm neutral because it's so subjective.
Yeah.
I have to take it with a grain of salt because it's just data, it's just information. How I interpret that information is incumbent on me, and it is valuable. I mean, if I read 10 articles and they're all saying that it's one way, I mean, I could just, wall up and just say, no, I am this and disregard it, or I can just acknowledge that there is something that's being presented to the world that is resonating in a particular way, and from that I can decide to either shift and alter how I would like to be perceived or effectively act in my world. But I can't strongly disagree because it's part of our industry.
Yeah.
It's what gets people in the seats, and it's also what gets people out of the seats.
So I do strongly disagree, but not to the point of delusional. Like like that thing that you said about like reading 10 articles saying the same thing. Like, yes, of course, there's something that's being said here. But when it comes to, because it's so subjective, when it comes to like hurting you personally or like affecting your confidence in that way, like I feel like we have to be built in a certain way where we're kind of bulletproof. We know our worth is not affected by those words, and like if there's a rock, you just don't have to pick it up, you know?
I've got no issue with reviews, with like professional critics, like whatsoever. They've got a job to do. Hopefully it's an informed opinion. What was the question? Critics get to me?
Yeah.
What gets to me, this is one of my biggest pet peeves in the world, is armchair critics. And for me, the difference between a critique and a criticism is a critique is designed to understand or further conversation, whereas a criticism comes from judgment and it's to put down. And so if I experience people criticizing work or art, that tells me I'm in the wrong room and I'm with the wrong people. And I immediately go, ooh, red flag. You're creating from a place of judgment. I don't want you in my inner circle. So in terms of like critics getting to me, then yeah, when I see people judging and putting down, of course it gets to me. It'd be nice to be like, no, water off a duck's back, whatever. But it affects me because then I go, oh, when you see my work, you judge that. I want to do one just because my curiosity got sparked by that other question. Queer roles should only be played by queer actors.
3, 2, 1.
I knew it.
Your jaw is to the floor.
Interesting.
It's a very, I think, important question. I'm here because I think inclusivity is such an important thing in our industry. And it's, again, what if there's a queer person who's younger and they want to be in this world and they want to be represented, but there's no representation. Everyone in this world needs someone that they can look up to, that they can want to be like, because it's where our power comes from, it's where our dreaming comes from. So I think, I'm gonna come over here. I like me talking. No, I think it's extremely important. I think queer people should be playing queer people on screen.
I'm neutral. I guess it comes down to how integral is it to the story.
Yeah.
And if it is an integral part, then by all means make sure it's properly represented. But if it's one, it's not integral to the story, maybe it's one scene or something like that, that means still try to find the right person for the role. But I'm neutral because I feel like that can be spread across many different actors. I don't think, and I'm not queer, so I don't know, and I could be, offending somebody, but you can't really tell people what their orientation is just by essentially looking at them, so to speak, right? And so if the role isn't going down a whole cultural avenue of what it's like to be queer and you're hiring someone who's straight, then yeah, I kind of disagree. But if it's just a part of the story but not the whole story, then I don't think it's as integral.
No. No, I completely agree with what you said. I feel like it depends on how integral it is to the story. If it's a big part of the story, then yes, obviously, just like the ethnicity question, hire a specific person that's queer or that's a part of that ethnicity.
Yeah, I kind of agree with depending on what serves the story. So if it does, absolutely. Like you have to limit it to that pool.
It's your turn.
There's so many factors behind this. I think first and foremost, just to address like your points of if it's not important for the story, I look at it from like a cultural perspective of employability and being able to hire people from underrepresented groups. In film, in BC in particular, over the course of 5 years, and 3.8% of characters on screen in BC were written as queer, which means that 96.2% of all characters for film and TV that were produced in BC are straight. And so I see it as for straight identifying actors to choose to play those queer roles over queer identifying or queer presenting people, I think it's unnecessary. And I think this is a little bit controversial. But I don't think that straight actors can call themselves allies if they do that, purely because they are taking work from queer artists and profiting from queer stories while actively denying work to queer artists. So that's where I kind of stand politically. But then you also think performance-wise, and where are you going to get the most accurate performance from somebody who has that lived experience? It took me until I was 19 years old to see a queer person on TV that was not the butt of a joke. And I started exploring this a couple of years when I was seeing like local actors getting cast in queer roles that are not queer. And I was looking at the message that that sends to queer kids. It's okay to be queer as long as you're straight. I can play a queer person on TV, but I'm not actually, right? So what I want to see is queer people be publicly queer and celebrated for their queerness.
Definitely agree. Definitely agree. What's weird about it is, because as a producer in town and as I work with the union, they're doing their best to make sure that there's inclusion and that people are being represented properly.
Diversity.
Now, as a producer, it's a very weird and uncomfortable thing to ask, which has been essential. Exactly.
Yeah,
you can't ask. So now I'm presuming and assuming. But yet the union's asking me, how many did you hire? But I can't ask, right? And so there's this delicate dance of like, yes, I would like to be inclusive. And writers, what do writers write? They write what they know, right? And so if there's going to be more inclusion, there's got to be more people in those different areas that aren't being included to start stepping up and writing for their own cultures and their own communities, and having the opportunity to present that as a different story, right? But we have to be the ones that are putting our stuff out there in order to be acknowledged. But it's a very delicate place. Like how am I supposed to, as a producer, hire someone in that arena if I can't actually find out if they're in that arena, and I have to actually presume and assume, which is offensive because now I'm basing it all on superficial judgments.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we can ask. I think the solution to this is putting the onus back on the actors. And I think if we were to put in breakdowns and casting briefs, we strongly advise, something to do like a strong desire to cast accurately from within the community, right? And then it's on the actor who chooses to audition. No one has to out themselves. No one's asking them anything. And I bet you there'll still be a whole bunch of straight actors go, well, I need to pay my rent, so I'm going to go and throw my hat in the ring for this. Yeah. But I think the onus is on actors and not the producers, because the producers and casting, to be honest, just want the best fit for the story. Right? And bottom line, they want to make some money, so they may cast someone who's more profitable, right? But if those actors take their names out of the race and it leaves a talent pool of 90% queer people, the odds of queer people being accurately cast go through the roof.
I agree with you on if there's a note that says that, of course, like I would not submit myself or my agent, but like coming from an underrepresented community, there already I don't have many opportunities. So I've had two scenarios where once they had put a note that you need to be from that community, and I did not submit myself. But I had another scenario where they didn't mention anything, and I did submit myself because I'm like, I want to represent that ethnicity that I'm from. I don't particularly identify myself, but it also means something to me to play that role because maybe, I have a friend back home that's going through that and it means something and I want to give that authenticity because I know it, but under no circumstance do I want to step toes on anyone. But again, for the story, if it doesn't serve it that I'm from that group, then I would do it. If it does, of course not.
I get what you're saying. You just said under no circumstance would you want to step on those toes. But by submitting and putting yourself in that talent pool, you are potentially taking work from a queer person.
I believe that casting, though, has to mention if this is necessary for the story. Because when I'm submitting, I don't know what the story is.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is I think the onus is on the actor, not on casting.
Right. So if there's a note, there's no way I'm going to submit. Right?
Yeah.
So
Because
yeah,
it has come up too, that they have been seeking in a particular pool and they're not finding anyone in that particular pool, and they've
Yeah.
actually expressed that they were now reaching
Branching
out.
out.
Yeah.
Do you, at that point, what's your opinion? Do you think we should still?
No, I think that's a really good point. And I would say like all of this
Yeah.
is very gray area. We're
Yes,
like
of
figuring
course.
it all out.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good point, and I think maybe similar to what we're talking about with other like disabilities, etc. Like I think first round should always be every effort made to cast accurately.
I agree. Yeah.
And if for whatever reason, for story or talent or whatever, it doesn't line up, then you need to open up your search to expand the talent pool. I think that's acceptable as long as the effort was made initially.